We are delighted to have each of you here with us this morning, and I can see that we have many visitors visiting family, and we're delighted for that. We thank you for being here. We are equally delighted that we have always a significant number who watch us live every Sunday morning. And yes, I know that this is Easter Sunday. And I've always really liked Easter Sunday because I know that on this particular Sunday, maybe more so than any other time of the year, people all over the world are thinking about and talking about Jesus. And I've even noticed that on our televisions this week, and as negative as I have been about television lately, they have even changed some of their programming so that they have been showing some faith-based type shows and movies. And Jesus is the one who said in Mark's gospel that no matter what the source may be, if someone has good intentions and they speak his name, he is benefited by it. And so it's wonderful that so many people across the world today are thinking about Jesus. And we're going to think about Jesus this morning also. But as I begin this lesson, I want you to know that I do it with caution, and I do it with a bit of anxiety, and I want to do it in humility, and I want to do it with compassion, but still I want to tell you something about Jesus that I think is so very important. So I wonder if you will recognize this phrase that Burke is going to put on the screen for us. You recognize that phrase? It has been a part of our dialogue in this country for the last bit of time, 2-3 years, I don't know exactly how long. But everywhere we turn, we talk, it seems, about this idea of canceling culture. I don't even know all that means. I do know that there is a giant push in our land and in our world to normalize thinking around the LGBTQ issue. I know that there is a great push regarding global warming, so that we are told that our greatest national security threat at this moment is global warming. I'm not sure about that. Don't know exactly all that it means, and I know there are debates about it. But we are moving away from fossil fuels. We're moving to more alternative energy sources. Because of it, we're changing our culture. And I know that we're changing our attitudes toward policing. We're changing our attitudes toward all types of morality situations. And our government, apparently by the majority of its elected officials, seems to be saying that we need to cancel culture. They are supported by universities. Universities are huge speakers on behalf of a cancel culture mantra. And if you bring anyone to some of the campuses in this United States to speak with an alternative voice, they are silenced. And Hollywood promotes the cancel culture agenda. And there are others. Media, for the most part, promotes over and over again the cancel culture agenda. Now, am I making you nervous on Easter Sunday morning? I wonder if this next statement could be true. I have found myself wondering a lot lately if cancel culture is really not saying to our world, and in particular our nation, and to all of us, that we ought to cancel Jesus. Could it be that they're really saying we ought to cancel Jesus? Well, I don't think anyone would say that publicly in that kind of a tone, But this environment in which we live, this culture in which we live, was formed by Jesus Christ and His words. And it seems to me that when we talk about all this cancel culture stuff, we are, into a large degree, saying we need to cancel Jesus. Those of you who are here regularly at Northside probably know that I have spent the last many months working with a university over in the edge of Oklahoma City. It's really more in the Edmond area, but when it was moved from Bartlesville to that location, the leaders of the city of Oklahoma City wanted a Christian university in that city. And so they carved out a square mile or so out of the Edmond area and made it the city limits of Oklahoma City. And maybe you have seen that university in the news lately. Twice in the Daily Oklahoman that I'm aware of. Once front page, local television stations, CNN. As of last Sunday, ABC featured it. And then hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of social media posts. All because the university decided that it would not go along with what is called this woke agenda. That it would not be a part of a cancel Jesus world. It would be kind, would be compassionate, would be loving, but not go forward in that direction. So over the last few months, I've spent a lot of time with small groups of people, and I've asked questions over and over and over again. And I took all that material that came from all these various meetings. Another person and I sat in a room for 4 hours on one of the snow days when the university was closed and looked at the data and said, what is it saying? What are people saying? And they were saying a lot. But we're trying to make our way to a new vision, a new future. We're not exactly there yet. But he and I spent time and finally said, I think everything that is being said might fall under these words. And the words are going to be on the screen. And I want to declare to you today that Jesus still matters. I don't care what government is saying. I don't care what people are saying. More and more, it seems, in a majority role. Jesus still matters. And if Jesus still matters, truth still matters. And if Jesus still matters, God's word still matters. And if Jesus still matters, character still matters. And if Jesus still matters, morality in every shape or form still matters. And if Jesus still matters, compassion matters. And if Jesus matters, people matter. Jesus still matters. Because He is the one who created this world. Well, I know God created the world, but it says that nothing was made without Jesus. He created this world and everything in it. And underline the word created because Jesus still matters. And after this world was created, God looked upon man. And He saw that men and women were involved in sin. And the heart of God was breaking as He saw man living in a spiraling downward type world. And He saw what great penalty they would carry with them on through eternity because of sin. And so the election was made in heaven that Jesus Himself would come to this earth. And He came to this earth not in royalty, not as He could have as King of Kings, but Jesus came to this earth being born into our world by way of a young woman whose name is hardly known in the world of that day. And this young woman had never had sexual relationships with any man. And so Jesus was born to a woman who had never known a man, and that still matters. For the first 30 years of his brief life, he lived in obscurity. Well, he wasn't born in a palace. He was born in a dirty, smelly stable. And for those first 30 years, he was in an obscure little village. And life must have been difficult. He worked as a carpenter. And that still matters. Because when he was 30, he began a public ministry. And he began to preach. And he began to preach about this coming of a kingdom where people would have forgiveness of sins, and the coming of a kingdom where people would live differently from how this world lives. And underline that. We would live differently from how this world lives. We would view the world differently. We would view people differently. Wouldn't make any difference what color of skin you might have. Wouldn't make any difference what kind of social standing you would have. We would view people as honorary citizens of this new kingdom, being children of God. And that still matters. Jesus confirmed his great teaching by way of miracles. They were amazing miracles. I mean, people would be raised from the dead. A leper would be touched and be healed. And a blind person would be made to see again. And it was amazing. And his popularity kept growing. And people loved to hear him talk. And people loved how he would look at them and treat them so kindly. But the government of that day, the Jewish government became jealous. They were so hungry with greed and so hungry with desire for power. And I will tell you that greed and a desire for power, along with certain other fleshly appetites, know no boundary. There's no stopping it. And so that government of that day wanted to cancel Jesus. And they solicited the help of a Roman government to cancel Jesus. And they decided to cancel him by killing him, hanging him. But it wasn't a hanging like you and I are accustomed to. If you watch the old Westerns like I watch the old Westerns, it's not where you tie a noose around their neck and shove them off a horse or shove them off a platform, and the neck may break, and if not, you're going to suffocate anyway. And death comes very quickly. It wasn't that way. Before they ever did the hanging of Jesus, they beat him with a whip that was designed to cut through flesh and cut through muscle and cut all the way to the bone, and blood would be lost in a massive way. And so by the time you went through the beating, you're almost dead. And all that still really matters. It really matters. And then they fastened him to that cross. The way they fastened him, how cruel can people get? They drove spikes through his hands, through his feet. And they stood that cross erect. And can you imagine the body weight tearing against those spikes in your hands and your feet? And his death wasn't all that quick of a death. For hours. The pain, the lack of oxygen, inability to breathe, until finally Jesus would lift up his eyes from that cross and declare, "It is finished." And he wasn't talking about his life being finished. He was talking about his purpose on this earth. It's over. The reason why I came was to bring forgiveness of sins, so the blood that drops from my body The reason why I came was that all men might be saved. It is finished. It is a victory cry. It's over. And that still matters. And they finally took him down from that cross. And two men took him to a borrowed cave. He wasn't buried in some pyramid in Egypt. Borrowed cave. And they sealed it securely with a massive stone. They even guarded it. And on the Sunday morning following the death of Jesus, some women came to pay respect. And they're shocked because the stone is rolled away. An angel sitting on that stone speaking to the ladies saying, he's not here. He's gone. He's been raised. And the women are so excited, they go rushing back to the apostles and they say, that tomb is empty, he's not there. And the apostles go running and they look inside that tomb and sure enough, Jesus is gone. And before long, Jesus is appearing to them. And he's showing them the marks of his crucifixion. And he appears to other people. For 40 days, some 500 people get to see Jesus, a resurrected Lord, and that still matters. No matter what people might say to you, no matter where you might be led in all this, I'm going to tell you, Jesus still matters. But you know the real question? The real question this morning is, does he still matter to you? Does he still matter enough to you that you would change how you live and you would change how you look at life? Does Jesus Christ still matter? In a world that seems to be saying, he doesn't matter anymore. He doesn't matter anymore. I mean, just yesterday, I read an article about a professor at a state university in Ohio. And he wins a civil suit against the university because there was a transgender person in his class. And the transgender person did not want him to use this particular pronoun with his or her name. And he said, I'm a Christian. I will use any kind of pronoun that you would like me to use, but I won't do this one. And the university sanctioned him. They wrote a letter about him, and they were punitive toward him. And the appeals court said, university, you pay a lot of money because you violated his life, because in his life, he's saying Jesus still matters. Isn't that interesting? We're going to take the Lord's Supper. We're going to pause and take the Lord's Supper. I really would like for all of you to think about how Jesus did die. I'd like you to think more than that about why he died. He died to set me free from my sins, and I have plenty of sins. I need to be set free. I need to be forgiven, and he came to do that. He does that. Think about that. And think about the victory he gave us over death, that now you and I, racing through life, and I'm telling you it's a race. The hair turns white before you can blink your eyes. But death will never hold dominion over any of us in the kingdom. And we get to think about that and celebrate that. But as you think about it, could you ask yourself this question? Does Jesus really matter to me?